Mirror's reflection. Story was a hot summer afternoon in a busy hospital in downtown Chicago. The air conditioning hummed a monotonous tune as people bustled through the sterile white hallways. Nurse Valerie Thompson, known for her sharp professionalism, was on duty for the evening shift. However, beneath her polished exterior, she harbored a deep-seated prejudice that she often masked with a smile and a friendly voice. That evening, a new patient arrived, Jordan Carter, a man in his early 30s, with a calm demeanor and an air of quiet confidence. He was a well-dressed, well-spoken black man who had just moved to the city, looking for better healthcare options. He'd come in for a routine checkup after some odd symptoms: dizziness, fatigue, and a mild cough that had been lingering for weeks. As he sat in the waiting room, Valerie stood behind the counter, flipping through patient files. When Jordan's name was called, she hesitated for just a split second before ushering him into one of the examination rooms. Her face was calm, but internally, her biases flared up. She had always believed that people like Jordan were lazy and unreliable, stereotypes she had been raised with. She tried to brush it off. This was a professional setting after all, but the discomfort lingered. Jordan sat on the examination table as Valerie began checking his vitals. Her hands were slightly shaky as she took his blood pressure, and she struggled to maintain eye contact. Jordan noticed but said nothing, sensing her unease but unwilling to escalate it. He had dealt with this kind of discrimination before. The subtle discomfort in her touch, the avoidance of direct conversation, it was all too familiar. When it came time to take his medical history, Valerie handed him a clipboard and asked him to fill out the standard forms. As he reached into his wallet to grab his ID, the nurse caught a glimpse of the name on his driver's license: Jordan Carter. Her heart skipped a beat. There was something in his eyes, something unsettlingly familiar. It can't be, she thought. But as she stared at the ID, her face went pale. The name was too close to that of a man she had once known. A man she had once despised. Jordan was the son of someone she had once deeply hated, her estranged younger sister's ex-husband. Valerie hadn't seen her sister in years, and she'd buried the bitterness of the broken relationship with every passing day. Yet the mere sight of Jordan's name made the years of animosity surge back to the surface. The room seemed to shrink around her as Valerie's pulse quickened. She looked down at the clipboard in her hands, her knuckles turning white as she squeezed it tightly. Her mind was racing. She couldn't help but imagine the worst. This can't be the same family, she muttered under her breath. Jordan, noticing the shift in her demeanor, asked quietly, "Is everything all right, Nurse Thompson?" Valerie stiffened, trying to pull herself together. "It's nothing," she replied, her voice wavering despite her best efforts to sound composed. She stepped back, almost too abruptly, her mind spiraling out of control. She had always told herself she was above the hate, but in that moment, every old prejudice bubbled to the surface, and she felt herself unravel. Her hands were cold as she tried to continue the examination, but her mind kept flashing to memories of her sister's failed marriage, the arguments, and the stereotypes she had attached to the man. Every wrong she had ever felt seemed to crash into her like an unstoppable wave. Jordan could see the panic in her eyes, and for the first time in his life, he saw the reality of how deep racial bias could run. He had been trying to ignore it, trying to believe in the goodness of people, but now he understood how far-reaching it could be. He knew how to handle this. He had done it before, in school, in the workplace, and now even in a hospital. It was exhausting, but he couldn't let her see his discomfort. He leaned forward on the examination table and spoke calmly. "Nurse Thompson, I understand this might be awkward, but this isn't about the past. It's about my health, and I came here trusting you to help me for a moment." Valerie was speechless. His words, simple yet filled with understanding, cut through the cloud of her fears and biases. She realized with a sickening clarity that her prejudices had no place here. The man in front of her wasn't her sister's ex-husband. He wasn't a symbol of the hate she had once felt. He was a person, just like anyone else. And in that instant, she felt ashamed. I'm so sorry, Valerie whispered, her voice barely audible. She felt her heart race, a mix of guilt and remorse flooding her chest. I wasn't. I wasn't thinking straight, Jordan nodded, offering a gentle smile. It's okay. But it's important to remember that every person you meet is their own story. My name, my background, it's just that. It doesn't define who I am. Valerie took a deep breath, the weight of his words settling over her. She could feel the walls she built around herself beginning to crumble. She needed to be better, not just for him, but for everyone she interacted with. From that day forward, Valerie worked to confront the biases she had carried with her for so long. It wasn't easy. Some days, the old wounds still stung, and the pull of past prejudices was hard to ignore. But with every patient she helped, with every conversation she had, she learned to be better. And Jordan? He left that hospital that day, not just with a renewed sense of faith in humanity, but with a reminder: change, though slow and painful, was always possible, even in the unlikeliest of places.